Testing 1, 2, 3. Number 9. Number 9. Hey YouTube. Once again, I'm pretty much bereft of topics. We are quickly winding down the year here in the northern hemisphere. The summer is coming to a close. Football season is cranking up. Basketball season is right around the corner. In the fish world, we are reaching quickly the quick part of our season, where all of the AVB 23, so sad. I don't get it. What are you sad about? Did I miss something? That wouldn't surprise me. Summer is where summer tubbing thrives. Ah, yes. We're quickly coming to the season where all of the a lot of the fish conferences pop off. Keystone Clash is happening. Aquashell is coming up. Ohio Fish, Ohio Cichlid Extravaganza is coming up. We're quickly entering the season winding down as far as warmth. BB23 says, I'm also sad since my newly set up 40 breeder is melting. That doesn't sound good. Unless you're talking about plants, and it's pretty common for newly set up tanks to go through a melting period. No matter how we try, there's always a difference between one tank and another. So, you know, different lighting, different water parameters. Yeah, the plants. Yeah, I can see that. I can see that that might be an issue for you. It's pretty common. I have a brown thumb. I've just never been very good. VB23, I'm in Indiana, just barely, right across the border from Kentucky. Just north of the Ohio River, so I'm about as far south in Indiana as you can go before you hit Kentucky. But anyway, the season, this is the season where most of our summer activities are starting to wind down. We feel the days getting shorter. We feel the nights getting cooler. It's like a quickening is going on. We're suddenly thrust into the season of mini fish conferences, lots of club conferences, lots of end of the year sort of things while it's still warm enough to not be really uncomfortable outside. Oh, you are with Otter Creek Aquatics and LR Brett's. Yes, I'm about 2.5 hours away from Lucas. I have visited Lucas's fish room. It was a remarkable experience, and Lucas is a great guy. He's got an incredible fish room. He's got an even more incredible lady that keeps him in line, and he's got a wonderful son. Peace, Wes, if you're out there watching. Um, I just feel like we're right on the cusp of winter starting, fall starting, and because of that, there's a lot of changes that go on. Our fish hobby is mostly, it gets put for a lot of people on the back burner during summer. Summer is the time. Hey, Justin Shepard, welcome to the stream. BB23 says, I try to do my setup in Lucas Brett style, let nature do its thing. And there is nothing wrong with that style at all. If it's one that works for you, then it really works for you. But anyway, it's our hobby is one that has, I don't know if it's less, but it's during the summer months we have time and the weather to get out and do things. We go traveling around the country, and I'm speaking primarily of the northern hemisphere here. Those in the southern hemisphere are probably just coming out of the slumber of winter. They're starting to feel the first effects of spring. But here in the northern hemisphere, we're winding our summer down. It's still hot. It's still way too hot in a lot of places. But we're starting to feel cooler nights. The nighttime temperatures are starting to drop. The outdoor activities are starting to slow, and VB23 goes exactly to where I'm headed. For sure, the summer's where the hobbyists slack off, and the winter they are stuck inside, so they work with their aquariums more, and that's exactly right. It is well known that the aquarium hobby sales fall off during the summer a lot because people are busy doing other things. They're canoeing, they're camping, they're going on vacations, they're spending time with their kids outdoors. All of these things kind of work towards the fish keeping hobby being on the back burner a lot during summer. But as winter rolls around, we are stuck inside more, and the fish keeping hobby grows in power. It's a good time of year to take stock on what has happened with your outdoor tubbing. If you're doing outdoor tubbing, it's a good time to take stock of your local clubs, of your local clubs, winterish events, fall events, and we get more introspective in the winter because we just don't spend as much time outside. We don't spend as much time doing outdoor activities. And so it's natural that our thoughts turn more towards our aquariums, our fish, our setups. We've pretty much gone through the season where any major changes that we're going to make, we've already made. And of course, this is generalized speaking. The fall is a season for auction and cheap fish from the summer. Yeah, a lot of people will have had breeding go on, and they will be ready to sell some of that fish stock off. But I think it's a good time to take stock. it's a good time to do deep cleanings in your aquariums. If you're one of those people that runs large um, canister filters, then this is a good time to break those things down while the weather's still warm enough, and be able to really tear down parts of your tank, you know, re-substrate, those kinds of major things where you're doing a lot of cleaning and really removing a lot of the stuff out of a tank and then resetting it back up again. You know, in the dead of winter, if you have to shut a heater off, sometimes it's really counterproductive. Your fish are going to go through an extended cooler period where the water starts cooling off. And so it's a little tougher in the winter time to do it. I mean, our houses are mostly heated, so it's not that tough, but this is the time of year when all of those last major things seem to get done in our fish keeping hobby, and we kind of feel the quickening of the pace. You know, we're racing to beat winter. We're racing to prepare for winter. And this is the time of year when you should really start thinking about preparing for winter. If you've set up a new fish room, if you've added tanks, BB23 says it's the opposite for me since my fish room is the same temperature year round. Yeah, well, I mean, if you're living in a highly controlled environment, then yes, I can see that. But some of us live in environments where we're dealing with old houses that don't have great insulation. And if we're on the north side in the wintertime, our rooms tend to get cooler than they should. You know, poor insulation, non-centralized heating, or heating that is, like in my house is so big, it doesn't seem that big, but it's so big that sometimes the heating is uneven. We run a gas furnace, and sometimes the temperature gets low enough and the wind gets strong enough that in one room it's still pretty cold. Welcome Tom Patterson to the stream, and he says that's me, Indiana winter, and yeah. BB23 says his house is 25 years old. My house was built in 1909, so it's older than I am. It's kind of sketchy in the wintertime, depending on how cold it is outside. Here in Indiana, that it's interesting. I have to run heaters in my tanks, or my fish will get too cold, and I've actually bought a what they call a garage heater, more than 100 years old. Yeah, my house actually has Civil War gun ports in the foundation. I really like living in a house like this, as opposed to living in a cracker box that's thrown together in 15 days. The work that was done on this house was done with hand tools. It was probably almost as quick, probably a 6 or 7 week project back then to put a house up, get a roof on it, but it's different in the sense that the work that people turned out back then was a lot different than what is turned out these days. Not to say that good quality craftsmen can't do a good quality job these days. They do, but mostly what goes on is we need to make money as fast as we possibly can, and so a lot of times you end up with thrown up construction that just really doesn't match up with the amount of money that you spend to get it done, or with the quality that you really need to keep from running into all kinds of issues. I'm not sure how I got off on this topic, but yeah, I like my old house. It has a lot of issues with it, but it also has a lot of pluses that come along with it. You know, I I run a lot of large tanks, and I am not concerned because of how heavy the floor joists are in this house, because of them being rough cut. They are much thicker and stronger than normal joists are. So I'm not as concerned. Now I do have settling issues. I do have foundation issues. With it being this old, this house has settled a great deal. But that's not really a fish topic. BB23 says, winter is a time for me to enjoy my fish. I bring all my fish outside in the summer. Hey, Alien World Aquatics. Welcome to the stream. Yeah, I, I've never been much for summer tubbing. I know that there are a great many benefits from it, but I've always been so leery of the diseases that my fish can pick up outside. Plus, I rarely run a lot of fish that would really benefit from being outside. I suppose I could run my lemon tetras outside for the summer. I would probably get a lot more breeding out of them. BB23 says nothing is worse than having a busted pipe. We had one last winter and got everything outside replaced. Yep. We're headed into that season. This is me feeling winter coming on. Waiting for football season is ending. We're headed towards winter, and there are a lot of things that we have as fish keepers need to be aware of as far as winterizing our houses, winterizing our tanks, winterizing our hobby in the sense of being ready and being prepared. I have fought winter in my northernmost bedroom where a lot of my tanks are. Geez, sounds like I've got a thunderstorm fixing to bear down on me outside. If I lose power, you guys will lose me. But here lately, knock on wood, we haven't been having so strong a thunderstorms that it's knocked power out much lately. So knock on wood. I just as a hobbyist, as someone who's been in this hobby for a long time, I just feel like that we need to look ahead. We need to get ourselves ready for what's coming, and that includes a lot of things, but winter is an especially pertinent season. Here in the northern hemisphere, it really gets cold in a lot of our locations, and we just need to take steps to be ready. Tom Patterson is asking me what fish I keep. Tom, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 tanks going now. I have my biggest tank is my 110-gallon Oceanic, and in it I have my L260 colony, which is 5 L260s. I did have 6, but I got my wild caughts about 2.5 years ago. It's what got me back in the hobby, was setting up that 110. I keep L260s, Queen Arabesque, Plecos, Lorocards in that tank. And I have, I tried to set up a biotope tank. And so I have lemon tetras in the tank. I have reed tetras in the tank. I have pencil fish in the tank. And I've also added teleocyclas, Teleocycla monogrammas. I wasn't having much luck getting my fish to breed, my plecos to breed. And so I thought maybe if I would put a natural, goodness, Max, if I would put a natural predator in that tank, that it might make my male plecos feel like defending a cave, and it might speed up the breeding process. It hasn't happened that I'm aware of. I have a lot of pleco caves, but they mostly spend the time in Texas Holy Rock. I've had Texas Holy Rock since the 70s, and so a lot of it has patinaed over enough where I felt like it was safe to use in a softer water tank. Plecos normally take to softer water. I have a 20-gallon high that has, I did have a colony of Lucas Brett's Skittles Neocaridina shrimp of all different colors that got well over 200 individuals in it, and then I had a colony collapse, and mostly what I've got now is 10 or 15 cherry reds left in that tank, and it is overgrown with moss. I've put all kinds of different moss in that tank, and the tank is literally overgrown with moss. I run assassin snails in most of my tanks, so the assassin snails are doing well in that tank, and they are also heavy in the 110. I've got a 55 that I rebuilt for my Peru fish, and it has 3 wild-caught plecos, about 10 imperial tetras, nigricinctus black belt tetras, and it also has 3, I'm going to say they're a Tytocharex species. All of these were caught in Peru, wild caught. I didn't catch them all because Dean and Corey and Felix and Michael Barber and Joseph were all there, so they caught a lot of them too. Um, and then in my 30-gallon long that I bought because I brought back two cichlids. Well, actually, we shipped 7 cichlids that were caught in different places, and 2 of them made it back alive. We had a rough shipment. Our shipment sat on the floor in the Lima, Peru airport for 3 days almost, and we lost most of our fish. Um, but they are an Acara, a Burgicina, um, and I'm not exactly sure of the species. These pictures in the background are pictures from our Peru trip. This is all the fish that we caught, and we just ended up with very few of them alive. It was really sad. But I've got 3 tanks in my living room. Sounds like we're about to get thunderstormed here.
Yeah, I knew if I went out there and started watering, it would rain.
Yeah, well, you pulled it off. We've got in my 20 high quarantine tank in the dining room. There are 3 rainbows left over from my wife moved some Java moss from the 75-gallon tank into that quarantine tank because she wanted plants in the tank, and it turned out that the rainbows in the 75 had bred in that moss, and we ended up with about 15 or 20 fry of Goiter River fry rainbows, and they have slowly grown up in that 20-gallon quarantine tank. And I sat down and caught as many of them as I could and put them in the 75 once they got up to about an inch long. So I'm assuming I got most of the fish that are in the dining room from Jim Swisky, and he was moving out west to go work for Corey out there and live out there, and he needed to get rid of a lot of his tanks. And I'm assuming that those Goiter Rivers were Gary Langstock. I'm not sure, but I think they came through Lucas, and so I think they were Gary Langstock that Lucas has had. So in the 75-gallon next to them, my wife's tank is about 14 or 15 Goiter Rivers. I think we still have 1 bronze left from all the fish that I got from Jim, and there may be a couple of the Goiter Rivers left over from that original group as well. And then there are 6 dwarf rainbows, praycocks in that tank, and a smattering of ottos left over from when we put ottos in there when the brown algae, diatomaceous algae, took over that tank. And then I have a 13-gallon rimless that I got from Jim as well, and the fish and shrimp in it also came from Jim, and they are Lucas's rainbow endlers, tiger rainbow endlers, although they don't really look like Lucas's tiger rainbow endlers anymore. They're much whiter and much more yellow now. Hey Pam, welcome to the stream. How's Pam doing today? We're fixing to get hit with a heavy thunderstorm here, so If I drop out suddenly, you'll know that's what it was. But that tank has rainbow endlers and some leftover shrimp from the shrimp that I got from Jim. I guess that's been over a year now. He was out there when we went to Peru. So it's going on a year and a half ago that I got all that stuff from Jim. If you go back through my videos, you'll find Rating Jim's Fish Room, which is a video that shows all the fish that I got. Tom says I have Lucas's White Cross Endlers and Thread Fins, and I don't know what Lucas's White Cross Endlers are. I'm not privy to that. I haven't followed that, but I would guess that that's what my tiger rainbows have turned into, is pretty much White Cross Endlers, because they are mostly white and yellow now, the males. Hey Daryl, welcome to the stream. We're getting inundated by a thunderstorm here, so if I suddenly drop out, guys, it's because my power went dead. So that's basically what I have, what I'm keeping right now. A smattering of cichlids and a lot of tetras and some live bearers and shrimp and rainbows, mainly. I cut my teeth in the hobby on large cichlids. I went through my large cichlid phase in the 70s. I line bred Jack Dempsey's for about 10 years in Plano, Texas when I lived there, and kept jaguars, and I even had an Oscar. Tried to breed clown loaches. I had 4 clown loaches that were over 15 inches, but sadly Mycobacterium took that whole tank away. It was 150 gallon, and it got wiped out by Mycobacterium. And the only way I know that was because I was so mystified by why they were all dying that I sent away 2 of them to a vet, university vet, and got it identified, and they did find Mycobacterium marinum, which is a tuberculosis, it's fish TB is basically what it is. And it just stunned me because I'd never, I was getting pretty good at catching illnesses as they started and curing them before they got so bad that I lost fish, and recognizing what was causing my illnesses and taking steps to keep those things from causing me to lose more fish, and that just floored me that there was something like that in the hobby that could wipe out a whole tank and basically kill everything, and nothing that you could do about it. Although I have heard more and more and more today that there are some people that are finding semi-cures for things like Mycobacterium. As this hobby advances, more and more people are working on these individual little topics and areas, and so there are some things happening in the this newer stage of this hobby that are breaking down some of the barriers that we ran into back in the day, as all us oldsters are wont to say. It's it's encouraging. You know, the some of the shrimp people are now figuring out ways to cure shrimp from oh, how do you pronounce it? Alesibiopsidae? Is that how you pronounce that deadly shrimp? Hey, hey, Fish Tropic, welcome to the stream, man. I'm just pretty much rambling on here, listening to myself talk. About to get knocked off the air by a heavy thunderstorm that's inundating us. um, it's encouraging that the hobby has advanced, that enough people with enough skill. Yep, that's what we all do, man. That's all we got. I've done so many of these live streams now that even if I have a topic, it doesn't seem to last very long. You know, it covers about 30 minutes of my hour-long live stream. So it's always the art of gab, just being able to continue to talk about something that has something to do with the hobby. If I'm given enough topic information out of the chat, I can usually I'm usually long-winded enough to get close to the end of the hour. But I do admit, you know, there's a lot of things I like more about the old school hobby than I like about the new school hobby. But one of the things that I really like about new school fish hobby and shrimp hobby, yeah, I'm something like a special class. I'm not sure if it's short bus special class or if it's anyway, it's really good that there are enough bright people in this hobby. There are enough people who have interdisciplinary talents to go to work on a thing like that shrimp disease or like mycobacterium that are quote quote unsolvable from the old days, and now they are starting to make headway. They've figured out enough drug cocktail combinations to actually have a decent enough effect. And you know, it's incumbent on us as fish keepers to recognize that all of our fish are sick. You know, we as human beings are all sick. We all have a myriad of diseases, pathogens, viruses. All of them are within us. But as long as our health is good, as long as we're getting proper nutrition, as long as our environment is healthy enough, we don't usually experience these problems. It's when we become highly stressed, it's when we become beaten down by poor nutrition or bad lifestyle or any number of things that wear us down as human beings, that all of these diseases that have been dormant inside of us, or viruses, yeah, age is another thing. Our cells start breaking down and don't replicate properly. But the point I'm trying to get at is every fish in every tank you have may have mycobacterium in it. It may be waiting there. It's when you get lax on your water quality, when you introduce some problem to the tank through error or bad choices, you know, you add a fish that you think will be fine, and it terrorizes everything else in the tank, and they are stressed continuously. They don't have any time where they're not stressed. Then all of a sudden, all of these problems manifest themselves. You get ick. You get, if you've done a too cold water change, you've introduced a situation in your tank that's created stress in your fish. It's the Monty Burns syndrome. Tank is waiting for an upset of balance. Yep, it's always like that. We're always balancing on the edge of a precipice, just like right now we're balancing on the edge of heading into the winter season and all the problems and positives that season can bring. It's the same way in our fish tanks with all of our fish having the ability to get really sick really quick. If we stress them, if we don't change water for 4 weeks and we don't have enough plants in our tanks to handle the extra bile load, and suddenly our fish are dealing with toxic water conditions, you're putting stress on that fish's osmotic processes. You're putting stress on its ability to fend off these diseases regularly. So while it's important that we recognize diseases like mycobacterium, things that can affect our tanks, ick, columnaris, velvet. The truth is that all of these things are present to some degree, mostly, in our fish at all times. Now, this is a generalization, because if you're getting fish from a highly acidic environment, then there are a lot of diseases that can't exist in a highly acidic environment. And so you will literally have fish that have never been exposed to those kinds of diseases. Fish Tropic says gram positive and gram negative. That's why I always say if a tank has more gram negative bacteria in it, it's going to be a gram negative disease. Yeah, I can't agree with you more there. Ick is weak fish disease. What do I think? Poor slime coat, maybe. I think ick comes in several varieties. I know Corey has spent a lot of time with this, talking about it, and I tend to ascribe. Hey Haley, welcome to the stream. How's your new rack going? I feel the need to hear updates about that rack, and also the ropefish. I think ick is a situation where we have introduced some quick stress to that fish, and there's an ick that is real fast, like you do a too cold water change, and the more sensitive fish in your tank will express ick within like a day or two. and then there is the ick that is really long-winded and really tough to get rid of. I think that stress ick is smaller, lesser in number, unless you just let it get completely out of control, and it just looks like little teeny white lice on the fish's body. Whereas the longer ick, the worse ick, I think that comes from a long-term problem uh, bad water quality, like hole in the head disease. And I was watching Dr. Lowe, the fish vet. I was watching a fish vet video the other day, and he basically said that the person was experiencing the beginning of hole in the head disease in some of his fish, and Dr. Lowe went to his house and tested the water and did scrapings on the fish, and it was hole in the head disease, but it was not caused by poor water quality, which I think is one of the biggest causes of hole in the head disease, but it was malnutrition. The guy, we in this hobby now are so worried about overfeeding our fish that we actually underfeed our fish a lot. And in the wild, that may happen on occasion when there's nothing around for them to eat, but they always find something to eat. There's always some little something for them to eat and keep going. But it literally, Dr. Lowe literally said, this is malnutrition. He said that we should be feeding 0.5 to 0.2 and even up to 1 grams of food per gram of body weight. Oh, I've said grams. I would highly suggest that you go look at that video, that you find it. He's got 2 channels. The Fish Doctor is one, and Dr. Lowe, Fish Vet, is the other. And I would highly recommend that you go watch that video. And he was saying that a lot of yes, I know you haven't made that video yet, because if you had, I would have watched it and be talking about it now. Haley's talking about being pretty drained from being sick, and she's gotten her water changes done, and she made coffee herself. You go, girl. And now she's got to figure out dinner for the bear, because our anniversary is tomorrow and I have to work, so should probably do something tonight. I wish you guys a happy anniversary, Haley. Give the bear a hug for us. Hey, Laura, welcome to the stream. Better late than never. Yeah, we've just gone through a bit of a thunderstorm here, so I've been kind of wondering if I would make it through. Hey, Select Pet, welcome to the stream. I basically talked about nothing all hour long, so, big surprise. The main gist of what I was thinking about is that we're headed towards the winter season, and if we're smart fish keepers, we're already walking through our winterizing setups. We're already preparing for winter to come. And there are a lot of steps that we need to go through to do that, and I would just recommend that people start thinking about those things. Haley said, also, I'm looking at all these empty surfaces trying to decide if I should do a bunch of little tanks or another big one. Well, Haley, my advice is a big one. Jaden won't eat tacos. Yep, big temp changes happen, Fish Tropic says. And that's very much true, that we are headed towards that big change season when things become more inside the house centric and more introspective. And Haley's saying that Jaden does not eat tacos. She says they smell bad but taste good, and she won't eat them. Haley says they just had rain too. Yeah, that probably the same front that rolled through you just rolled through us too. Um, it's it was pretty active. I'm not sure how much rain we got out of it or if it's still raining now, but the front itself was pretty active. So yes, that's a great time to do a water change. Yeah, a lot of thunder, a lot of lightning and thunder. But anytime the barometric pressure drops, it's a great time to do a water change, and you will very often trigger your fish into breeding. If they are healthy enough to breed, if they are happy enough to breed, if they are fattened up enough to breed, and you get a big barometric change in a weather front coming through, and you do a heavy water change with slightly colder water, you can very often trigger breeding. Haley says she hit the ropes and the quarries with water change because of it. Even though I feel like crap, fish come first. Yeah, the fish do come first always, Haley. That's how it's got to be until it's life-threatening or, you know, a really important thing, and then the people come first. So you gotta balance that out too. And I'm sorry that you're suffering through being sick. Uh, I hope you feel better soon. Just go and sneeze and cough on Lucas a lot tonight or tomorrow night. He'll love you for that. We had a lot of rain this past week too here in England. Great Britain, things are looking up for next week though. Fish Tropics wondering what the difference in barometric pressure would be in a high-rise apartment as far as related to a ground level house. That's an interesting idea. I tend to think that most of our cloud level, you know, most of the storms are so high up that the barometric pressure is going to be pretty much the same in a low level apartment or a high level apartment. There may be some difference in it, but I would tend to think that it's Haley says it's his turn. His kid started this whole sickness, and he's the only one it has not hit. Yep. Maybe I'll order barbecue or something so I don't have to cook, but it's better than fast food. Yeah. Barbecue can't go wrong with barbecue usually. If the place you're apartment 40. Well, I mean, that would not be that difficult to test if you could find someone with a high-rise building and use several different barometric test devices and run them from the ground floor to Uh, floor 200, you could probably get a good readout on that. You know, they would have to be pretty accurate barometers to give you a solid enough reading to be able to tell the minute differences between that much distance. But my inclination is to believe that the low pressure of barometric pressure is taller than most buildings. Fish Tropic wonders if gravity stunts growth. I'm assuming you're talking about in human beings as opposed to fish. I think that our evolution as a species has gone on for so long that gravity has pretty well been taken into account. And it's genetics, I think, that height equals. I doubt that gravity has that much of an effect on genetics, you know, that quickly. So, I mean, over eons of time, yes, it has an effect in the sense of us evolving under the weight of gravity. But gravity doesn't change that much. Our gravity keeps, Select Pet says, our gravity keeps our eyes from getting big and oval-like and our skin from turning gray.
What?
He's talking about aliens, that we'd look like
I see.
aliens if we didn't have the gravity.
Okay.
That one had me going for a second there. All right, guys, we're winding up at the top of the hour. I hope you guys have learned something, even if it's that we don't look like aliens because gravity has kept us from getting there. Good luck with your fish. Get ready for winter. Winter is coming, even though winter came and went in Game of Thrones. In reality world, winter is ahead of us. We've got the fall season as a ramp up to it, but those of us in the northern hemisphere need to start getting prepared for winter in our fish rooms. See you in the final space. All right, guys, have a good rest of your weekend, and good luck with your fish.